Welcome to the Rise to Thrive podcast with your hosts, Linda Tate and Amelia Travis, your life resource for manifestation, wellness, and abundance. Tune in weekly to thrive daily. This week's episode coming at you.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Rise to Thrive with your hosts, Amelia Travis and Linda Tate. We are super excited today to get to know Linda on a little bit of a deeper level and hear how we arrived at doing this podcast and learn about some of the gifts and life experiences that brought her to this place and that also enable her to be able to serve this awesome community that we're building with her incredible knowledge about finance and wealth and manifestation and abundance and just conscious entrepreneurship and all good things. So Linda, thanks for being here today.
Amelia, thanks for having me.
So girl, I know we've had 5 weeks for people to start to get to know us, and they've heard little snippets and nuggets of our stories. But I wanted to dive a little bit deeper with you today and just understand some of what motivates and drives you, how we got to Rise to Thrive podcast, and just hear a little bit more about your story. So are you willing to share with us?
I would love to share.
Cool.
Thank you for asking.
Yeah, so even though it's kind of annoying at cocktail parties, I kind of want to start with the first question of like, who are you and what do you do? In case, our listeners don't actually know, they're just like, oh, that's a really funny girl on that podcast. They might think that you moonlight as a comedian. Maybe you do, I don't know. But like, what's your day job? What do you do with your time?
So my day job right now, as I have transitioned over the past few months, is both into wealth programs. So I'm coaching people in their wealth expanded, and then also for business strategy. So I have taken what I learned in finance and what I've learned in my holistic coaching career to build programs for people to both increase their overall experience with wealth and money and unblock subconscious belief systems, and then also to do different work with their business strategy and to support themselves with their life as an entrepreneur.
That's freaking awesome. And this is not something that's necessarily new to you, because in 2015, when we were at the Shivananda ashram together, we sat down and you gave me like a divinely downloaded financial and business strategy coaching session in between chanting sessions. We got down and dirty with some really solid business coaching. And that was actually a transformative experience for me because one, it opened my eyes to like, holy cannoli, Linda is a badass coach and actually knows more about business and finance than I realized. But also it was my first experience with like conscious or like divinely downloaded business guidance. Like I felt like you were like just channeling God, like you were speaking, but it was like Holy Spirit speaking. There was just, it was you and it almost wasn't you. So this isn't a new thing for you. Before you mentioned a transition into like doing this privately coaching through Leela Life. Where were you coming from?
So I just spent the past 7 years at Morgan Stanley, and I, prior to that, had done a stint of really interesting, odd sales job. My time at Morgan Stanley, I was both in their financial advisor training program and then also a manager. I was promoted to a vice president of business development at 26, and then I went back to being on the sales side as a wealth manager for their wealth management.
So you were like living that pencil skirt and pumps kind of life. Like you were like dressed up in a suit and went to an office. Did you have a little briefcase that you took with you?
No briefcases, but very professional totes. And one of my most memorable meltdowns was actually to my brother. I'm like, and these outfits, I can't wear these outfits anymore. And it was like my career aspirations. I remember being a freshman at Rutgers, sitting there and everyone's like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I want to be a businesswoman wearing pencil skirt and pumps. And I got that. And so it was like, try back to the drawing board.
Isn't that like one of the cool things about visualization and manifestation though, is like we set these intentions for what we want, and sometimes they're based on surface like appearance or what our perception is of something. Like You know, you wanted to be that businesswoman wearing those outfits, feeling high-powered, professional, you know, financially free, whatever it is. And so you had that really clear visualization, and you went out there and like got that. And then in getting it, you know, 5, 6, 7 years down the line, you're like, this is not what I was seeking.
Yeah, and I would say during my time, you know, it was a really pivotal moment when I decided to go into finance, because I had left kind of that gap of right out of college, what am I doing with my life, tried to make it work, and then had been contemplating after 2 years in sales. I worked at a massage school doing admissions, going this career path, and I thought I'm either going into finance, because that's what I had known through kind of family of origin, my dad's job, or I'm going into well-being. And I thought, well, I don't know anything about money. I should know, and then I'll help other women, and that'll be what I do. And if I don't want to do that long term, at least I will have learned something, and I'll always love wellness and well-being. And it just really unfolded this interesting career because I have done both the whole time.
Well, I know, and that's what I think is so cool. You know, when we give your laundry list of credibility, it's pretty ridiculous. And I'll do it for you so you don't have to toot your own horn. You can let me know if there's any pieces that I'm missing. But yeah, alumni of Rutgers, which is a very, you know, acclaimed school. Double major. What were the majors? We got to know.
Psych and journalism.
Psych and journalism. Okay. So that's, you know, I mean, that's impressive in and of itself, but you've always been a great communicator and curious about the human mind. And then, as you said, making VP at Morgan Stanley at age 26, that's incredibly young. You were probably surrounded by a bunch of old dudes. Sorry, old dudes. Sorry, Rock. But during that time, you also became an integrative health coach, a plant-based chef, and I know there's like a special title for your chefness, right?
That works.
Okay. Yoga teacher, right? You did your 200-hour yoga teaching certification. What else? This is
I found myself in a SUP yoga cert.
Oh, that's right. Stand-up paddleboard yoga certification.
I was doing personal training, so my personal training cert, TRX, and I think that really does round the gamut there.
So you're a lifelong learner.
Oh, and did the Tony Robbins life coach training program.
Oh yeah, which is a huge. So any one of these things for many people would be a commitment. Like that's the only thing that you're doing. You've consistently woven these continuing education experiences and certification experiences and expansion of your credentials into an existing life, an existing full-time job. And you've done that in really unconventional ways. Like things that people would often perceive as impossible. I remember when you actually took the time away from your job at Morgan Stanley. I don't know if it was a leave of absence or whatever. It was something that most people would have been like, oh, you can't do that. And yet you took a few months off to go do your chef certification and go actually live in New York. Were you working remote during that time? Or?
Yeah, so when I left for the ashram doing my yoga teacher training, I was transitioning from the management role back to sales, and I was able to, I think it was almost a month that floated in the ethers, but just say I'll be back in the office on February 6th or whatever the exact date was. And literally I ended on December 31st, flew to the ashram on Jan 2nd, and was there for the month. And that was such a life-changing experience of really decompressing, understanding the effects of stress. And then for the chef's training program, I had this idea where I was like, if I was living in Florida, which I was at the time, and wanted to go to school and do a class on Wednesday nights or Saturdays, that wouldn't affect my work schedule. It would be out of working hours. And I thought, well, why is New York any different? And so obviously locationally, but I just had this idea of, could I be there, work remote? I knew there were some different rules around where I could be in the office. So I had to fly back under every 28 days, but I'm like, who wants to be in New York longer than that at any one time anyway? This is awesome. And I would fly to Florida on a Sunday morning. I'd fly back on a Wednesday, and I would do that every less than 28 days. And that actually was a really amazing platform also for my current relationship to reset and bud. And there was a lot of shifting that happened in following my heart during that time, including helping my brother like open his gym with his business partner. And it was such a special time. So my brother and I were living together during that year in Jersey City.
So the reason I think this is super interesting and important for listeners is because you've always been a person who has inspired me to recognize that life is unlimited and that we can sometimes feel as though our circumstances prevent us from doing the things that we want to do. And I'll make it really simple. Like, you know, if a listener maybe has a full-time job and maybe they have a family too, and they might say to themselves, I can't do my yoga teacher certification because I have a full-time job and I have a family, you know, or any combination like that, where it just is, I can't do this because this, but you've always shattered those molds. And as I've witnessed you know, over the past 5 years of friendship, like it's just continually amazed me that you've done things that seem impossible. And I would love to know if you feel like there's just any advice or kind of tangible practices that people could maybe consider if they're feeling limited in their own life, but they want to do more, but they feel like they can't because of their current circumstances. How do they shake that up?
Yeah, like for me, it was just as simple as really following what makes my heart sing. So Shivananda, I mean, it was wild talking about visualization, manifestation. During college, you know, that was on my vision board or on whatever I would hang as a goal, was literally Shivananda. I had never even known about that style of yoga practice, but it was like seared into my mind of that exact space. And it was a decade later that it came to fruition. But it was like knowing what I wanted, following like the curiosity of that, and then life provided for me that experience when it was right. And it was, how could I say no? And you, specifically to this experience, were a big part of that, meeting you as like a conduit to that experience. And I would say that when it came to, say, the decision to go to culinary school, you know, at the time being so interested in plant-based and nutrition. I mean, I had traveled the country visiting naturopath and dietitian programs, and I was really curious about holistic healing and nutrition, and nothing vibed. And then I get to see Natural Gourmet while I'm in New York for a friend's dress fitting, and I'm like, oh my God, this is perfect. And just, it might be impulsive, but it's more than that. It's like soul. It's like my own like chills, it's symbols, it's confirmation. And it was such a yes that I knew without knowing anything that everything would line up. And that makes me the most excited, is when I know, and for listeners, like when you tune in and like listen to the stuff that does spark your curiosity or your joy, when you follow that, I will say nothing can go wrong. Like that is your essence. And it's, things can go wrong, yes, on the surface. What I mean by nothing is like you will never lead yourself, or your guidance will not lead you astray. It won't be easy. There'll be leaps of faith. There'll be bumps in the road. There'll be challenges. But in the end, whatever the end means, it will have worked out exactly for, I think, the highest good or highest expression. And so I think for me, it's the practicality is the unwavering faith in that. And also being curious. And I always am, I always will be, I always have been. And like it's life, like that's expansion, that's growth. And it is what's the next thing around the corner. And it might look completely different than a year ago. And being unapologetic to that experience.
All of these modalities have informed the belief that it's possible for especially women, female entrepreneurs, to find a life of true holistic wellness. And that really is what you're doing through Lila Life, with the recognition that finances are foundational in wellness.
Mm-hmm. And really passionate. I mean, I can remember being really young, and my dad, you know, his family had divorce show up in different areas, and he was always telling me, like, make sure you can take care of yourself, make sure you can take care of yourself. And, you know, he's married nearly 40 years, and yet that he just echoed that so strongly to me. And for better or worse, that is a guiding principle, is like sort of the independence, financial independence, and understanding and empowerment. And I see so many women that sometimes push it off, or they don't want to know, or it's overwhelming, or it's embarrassing, or their husband or boyfriend or whoever does it, or their parents. And it's like, it's just so important, just in the way that you connect to your true essence and your creative expression, considering that maybe finances could also be a part of that. And
well, they absolutely are. And like, you're speaking to me, like I was literally the girl for years who I just wouldn't look at my bank account. Like it would, cause I didn't want to know, and because it would overdraft, and I had, you know, these wealthy boyfriends or whatever who would give me money, or I'd call my dad to give me money. And then those behavior patterns continued into the first few years of my business even. And it really took hitting the same challenges over and over, and having, you know, a husband and partner who was like, hey, you really need to like take ownership of your business finances. Like you need to look at the stuff. You need to learn to like the spreadsheets. Like you need to go in and check, you know, even just with you, like coaching with you, you're like, how would it feel to check your bank account balances and your credit cards every day? Not from a place of fear or concern, but from a place of empowerment. Like I want to be empowered in knowing what's going on so that I can make informed decisions about how to spend my money and about, you know, what expenses are necessary. And you've been such a just guiding light and cheerleader and champion for me of like rising up and like owning my money. And that's so, it's been, I can't even really, I like stuttering over like how transformative it is, because like we talk about base needs, right? We talk about like food, shelter, water, like we need these things to survive. Like, guess what, guys? Like, unless you have a garden and like, you know, a spring, like you need money to buy food and water and pay for the shelter that's over your head. And so of course it's going to create and breed stress when we're either not willing to look at it, or we're not empowered in it, or, you know, we're just kind of a passive bystander in it. And so, you know, when you talked about like, one, how do all of these things inform what you're currently doing? And two, like, where is it leading? And you said the word leadership, and I feel like, yes, I feel like there is this movement that is happening, and that I know that you're a part of, and I'm a part of, and we want to invite all of you listeners to be a part of if you're not already within it, which is women in leadership and women rising up in ownership of all the aspects of their life, not just their money, but also their desire, their sexuality, their femininity, their health and fitness and wellness. And just like, you know, instead of it just being buzzwords of like, oh, holistic wellness, and that meaning that like you wear Lululemon and drink green juice, like, no, what does it really mean to like have a whole picture of like what makes you well in your life? So that's where I think what you do is like real freaking exciting.
Yeah. And I'll say that in such like love, like, you know, I've considered the word feminist, and I'd say that I land to so much more of like unity and equality. And when I say equality, like that can get like flushed around, but it's like, I want like, it's a humanity conversation that often women can get, there can be a suppression. There can be that this is still happening. And so I want the same things for men, and I want to make that very clear. And
we love you, men.
I do. I've always been cautious around the conversation of it being like hyper-focused to women. What I feel sick of is just that kind of dismissal of like, well, that doesn't really matter, I can't have that. And it's like the message to women and men of like, yes, you can. And for women, and certainly in finance, often an underrepresented gender and segment in finance in my previous career, just, it's like, step into it, feel the strength. And there's so much power and ability for women to create systems, including work, including money systems that are completely new or haven't been the way we've seen things before. And that's where, you know, being a multi-passionate entrepreneur, mom, wife, leader, all the different roles that like someone like yourself, Amelia, is, it's like, it doesn't look like what has been, and that's amazing. and to understand that it doesn't have to, and the freedom and the expression to truly create, and we all have that power within us if we want to take it.
Can you give people just one thing? I know we just gave them one thing with me that you told me, like, how about you just look at your bank account every day and your credit cards every day? That's a great place to start. But is there like one thing that they can do, or maybe two, where they can feel more empowered in their finances right now?
Yes.
Or in their life overall?
Yeah, well, speaking specifically to money, what I urge people to consider is the next time they feel frustrated in the world, and it may be like a larger issue, to consider how their spending has some impact, even if it's a micro impact, and do they feel in alignment with that? And there's going to be some things that, you know, may be unavoidable. So for example, you have a car, you're buying gas, there's a social impact to that. You know, you're doing the best you can do. Maybe you got the highest miles per gallon, or you're driving the hybrid, and you're doing the best you can. But what the decisions that you're making that may be unconscious, and for example, right now I'm on day 18 of a no Amazon shopping experience.
No.
and are not really, in all honesty, no online shopping experience, and just understanding like the attachments, and it's created so much space. But something that you can do today is, when you're spending, just ask yourself, like, what does this mean to me? Does this align with who I am? And are you going to do it for every single spend and every single penny? I don't know, but play with it and just consider the ripple effect of your dollars. And there was a moment that I laughed, you know, there's like the political uprising of our last election. And I thought, gosh, if people had that much accountability to how they spend every day, which is literally voting every day, what would the world look like? And so, and that's without being from any political viewpoint. That's just saying, like, express yourself with your dollars in a way that feels good for you. And in terms of just overall like tactical life insight, is just remember who you are. Remember what makes your heart sing. Remember what gets you laughing or feeling joyful. And whether it's a large scale jump or commitment or decision, or just ways to infuse that daily, the more joyful that each of us has, I truly believe, is like how we're lifting up everyone around. Never underestimate the power of a smile.
You've got a good one, girl. Love those pearly whites. So lest anyone think that Linda Tate is entirely perfect and is superhuman and can just like accomplish everything and all of that, can we delve a little bit into your origin story so that we can start to understand more of where you came from and how you grew to be this incredible woman that you are today?
Yes, I was born on May 6th, 1987. I'm a Taurus.
Ooh, yeah, you are. Do you identify with that zodiac sign?
Sometimes. Yes, I do.
Which part do you identify with?
Well, I'm actually the week of the teacher, which is, I'm a Taurus, I believe a Taurus 2 or 3, and that's the week of the teacher. And I've always felt like, although I'm not a teacher by trade, that I find myself in teaching roles. And there's a stubborn element to Taurus that I've been reminded that I can often be in sometimes, like sort of the bullheaded part of it. And sometimes, only like Monday and Tuesday nights.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday morning, and sometimes Sundays after 3.
12 to 7. And one of the things about Taurus that I love about myself is we're aesthetic, like we like aesthetic. And it's something that as I continue to grow into my life, I find the appreciation for it. And in just sort of unusual, like great tiles or like a beautiful door. And it's something about aesthetics that it's like heartwarming, and it's a way I feel really connected to myself.
Yeah, that's really cool. One of my favorite quotes is, "I will make everything around me beautiful. This will be my life." And I'm like, That's so nice, you know?
That feels like part of me.
Yeah, beauty is definitely, I think, an aspect of well-being, cultivating beauty. So that definitely makes sense for you, since you are such carry such a commitment to well-being overall.
Yeah.
So we made it to your birthday and your zodiac sign. So let's circle back on that question. Tell us a little bit more about your upbringing. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Lantana, Florida. I have a younger brother named Rock, who I'm very close with, and my dad are Rock and Lynn. There was a Tate family song once that went like this: "Go Rock, go Rocky, go Lynn, go Linda," and it's just sort of the simple Tate family song, I guess.
I like that. I was grooving to that, you guys. You couldn't see it, but I was dancing. That could have kept going for me, but all right.
We were just a tight family, always in sports. We were raised in Lutheran, then Catholic or Christian, then Catholic school system.
A church-going fam.
Very much a church-going fam, and my family religion of origin is Lutheran, and so that was just an interesting experience. And I was always really smart. I had straight A's, and my parents paid me in ice cream scoops for every A I got, and then that became too many ice cream scoops.
Yeah, that would have been like a very large ice cream sundae.
But I would get 3 scoopers before, and I'd be like, "Are you sure they can't do a 4th?" And I was like really into my grades and ice cream as an elementary school kid.
That's cool. My dad paid us by taking us to A&W. Did you guys have A&W?
I think that's the root beer. We don't have
it. Was
that.
the root beer float. Yeah.
Do they have corn dogs?
They had hot dogs. I couldn't tell you if they had corn dogs, but I do remember maybe getting very excited when I got my report card, because I knew it meant I was going to get to go eat a root beer float. But I didn't get 3 scoops, so you were definitely ahead at that game.
Yeah.
So this church-going fam, you had a happy early childhood, it sounds like.
Yeah, I had a traumatic injury when I was a young girl. I think I was 4 or 5, and my dad actually dropped me, and they said I would be brain dead, blind, or die. So that was kind of like a abrupt change in everyone's life. Just
way to set up that dad guilt for the rest of life.
Right, from an early age. And I think that had a profound impact on how I was raised, and being like the first kid anyway, and then having had such like a near-death experience, it being just really like touchy. And I was, from even then on, head injury prone. I like slammed my head on the tire swing in 1st grade. Like I had weird head injury. I sat on a chair at Christmas kitchen and like fell off of it. And like I was having concussions as a kid, and on top of already a traumatic brain injury. So there was just a lot of like a protective layer that kind of naturally came into my upbringing.
So what do you think that karma is about, of the head injury pattern? Because I know what I think it's about, but I think you're just like so freaking smart that it's like the universe and God were like, we're gonna have to rein this one in. Yeah, send in a couple of roadblocks. Oh, that was a rough one. You had to go straight to the dropping on the head.
Yeah, I had a theory of like, survival of the fittest, of like losing the brain cells that were unnecessary. And, now we know so much about regeneration, and through well-being and the possibility of regeneration, I feel just so blessed. And actually, as an adult, my dad took me to this brain center that they're called SPECT scans, and you can have scans done of your brain to see any like lasting effects of traumatic brain injury. And that for me felt like a really healing experience for both he and I of what had happened 20 years prior. At least that's what it was for me, and releasing. So
you got the all clear.
Yeah, the all clear, and learned a lot about myself through that experience. We stayed for a week in Virginia, and it was a really like intense experience.
How old were you when that happened?
25.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, that's good, because that's when your brain's supposed to like be done
level off.
And that's when mine kind of started to rein itself in.
This is sweet memory, but my parents, they were like really thoughtful with little things, and maybe it was more my mom and my dad would go along with it, but like, for example, if they'd go on a trip and they didn't travel much without us, maybe once a year, if that, but they would set up a scavenger hunt. And it was so special. Like, and I actually did have quite a bit of anxiety, like probably like 10 on, I would say, but I could, like, because I'd get scared when my parents would leave. I was like terrified of them dying, but before they would go, they would do this little scavenger hunt, and in like Christmas time, a similar scavenger hunt to like find the one gift. Like they put an N64 on the roof once, and they just sort of like next level certain things that made a lot of joy as a kid.
So would you say that you remained pretty focused and like in good shape for most of high school? You didn't fall into kind of any of the like sex, drugs, rock and roll, depression, like that kind of stuff? Or were you just managing it or hiding that kind of stuff better?
I think I hid like the anxiety. I think it was like sex and alcohol. And it was like limited in the way that, like, you know, when you're training 6 days a week, we were training 25 plus hours a week. Like, you know, like how much of a role can alcohol have? It was somewhat limited, but that would definitely like start developing, I'd say, some like binge drinking tendencies. And I think I had, whether it was like an alcohol allergy, but I would get really sick off of just like a little bit. And so it was like kind of navigating that. But like I said, I was honor society. I was all-American swimmer. Like I was definitely keeping everything going, and got a college scholarship, and just had
so
like.
Then when was the first time that you had like a dark night of the soul? Was it not until college that you had? Because I know there's got to be one in there somewhere. You are.
Yeah, I was like 17. Like I got arrested.
Back the train up and tell that story, please. Thank you very much.
It was a few days before my 17th birthday, and I was being like a little, I don't know, my boyfriend and I were fooling around, and it wasn't in a bedroom, and we got in trouble for being outside. And yeah, I got arrested, and it was like scary and embarrassing, and like people knew, and you know, my parents were really strict, and it turned into like this parent war, and I was like the bad girl. Like I was like bad. Like my parents still will like make jokes about me being bad, and I'm like, I was like such a good girl. Like, so I felt sometimes like that got like a mislabel or something. Like,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think to leave even your parents out of it, let's just look at the fact that like society and our dominant culture and our institutions and our media teach young women that desire is shameful and that pleasure is shameful. And
when I was like in a Catholic high school getting like arrested on the weekend for swerving around like in public or whatever, it was actually a private property. So yeah, like I got taken to juvie and was left there for like 10 hours. And this chick who had shoplifted kept like faking that she was sick. And I actually did do like a little bit of shoplifting. I had a friend that lived like south of me. And when we'd hang out, like I'd get like the nerve to shoplift with her. And, but I laughed because that like cured me from shoplifting. I was like terrified. And
can we just have a moment though for how freaking weird it is that we're going to put a kid in juvie for hooking up in public and like equate that to theft,
right,
which is illegal. But it's like, all you were doing, okay, so you had your pants off and you were, whatever it was in the public. I mean, okay, tasteless? Yes. Should we perhaps have a conversation about where might be more appropriate places to get it on? Sure. But send you to juvie? I mean, come on. Our society can do better. This is why women have such like issues with shame and repressed desire that
was real. Like that felt for so long like a week, like I had just like this anxiety around sex that like something bad was going to happen. And part of that was like I had to go to Planned Parenthood and like learn about STDs and birth control. And it was just like this really like fear-based experience that was challenging. And the cops at the time, they were like, I was like, oh, because I think I was wearing like a beach outfit, but I knew I had something different in the car. And I'm like, can I go change? And they're like, oh, now you want to put clothes on? You know, they were saying that.
That's fucked up.
Yeah, and
that is not cool.
And because I had to go to the police station, and they were like, what did they say? Oh, so I was like, oh, I just hope everything's okay. I hope everything's okay. I'm like talking out loud. I'm worried. And the cop said, if you keep your legs closed, everything will be fine. I'm 16 years old.
Yeah, that makes me sick to my stomach. Like, I feel like I hear that kind of stuff and I'm like, this is when we talk about like toxic masculinity and we talk about smash the patriarchy, that's what the fuck we're talking about. You know what I mean? Like, how dare you? Like, where's the agency and the autonomy for the young woman who's coming into her own? Like, okay, so it was a poor decision. Is there risk involved? Of course, there's risk inherent in that sort of behavior. And like, that could have been a great conversation. But, you know, thankfully you had enough self-possession and self-awareness to, whether at that time or later, to work through that kind of stuff and be able to filter it and be able to realize like other people's projections don't determine my reality. But maybe not for a while, right? Like you're still carrying it. Like there's still that little bit of energy in your voice as you share that. That's like, there's still pain there, right? And like, you should be ashamed of yourself, policeman, officer, whoever you are, who's I'm sure listening to our podcast now.
Yeah.
So would you say that arrest is like on the lines of kind of your most deep, dark secret-ish from life?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there was other, like, I think that for me, there was like elements of depression, and I can remember like having an all-out like brawl with my mom, like just her being like, oh, you know, you just say whatever you want to say to me. And I said like, I hate you. And it was like really emotional. And like, there was just this real intense tension with my parents from like 16, 17, 18. And you know, like swimming was a real safe place in a lot of ways because I got in the water, I swam, I raced, like I could get the energy out. So that, and like that time period too, my brother, I'm 15, he's 12, he's 13, I'm 16. Like he did not like, he loved me, but he was not, I think, my number one fan during those years. And there was just this sort of family strain through the end of high school that we all were like still doing our best and would show up to church on Sundays, but it was like, it was an intense time. And like, I think in a lot of ways, swimming was a huge like help in my life.
Mm-hmm. I got to give credit though to Ma and Pa Tate, because, you know, being a new parent, like parenting is not easy, you know, and it's easy for me to say that stuff now. And then I think, well, like, what if my kid was, you know, busted doing X, Y, or Z? There's like this disappointment, and like you take it as a reflection of yourself. You know what I mean? Like, what did I do wrong that my child?
Like we did the same things, but we just didn't get caught. Like it was just such mixed messaging during that time because it was like that. And then, you know, I had to go see the therapist, and the therapist, the one, they sent me to a man, and he'd be like, you know, like you're gonna have sex with a lot more men. And I was so creeped out. Like it was like so like, I'm like, what are you talking? He's like, so don't worry. And I was like, what? Like for a young girl, it was very unusual experience.
And I wonder, like, what was the goal of the therapy? Like, was it like to help you recognize that there are more practical places to?
No, it was like it felt a lot about like sin, and like, it felt a lot about like, it felt like these religious undertones to like, you know, I remember the pastor would say to me all the time, like, stay out of trouble. And my parents would be like, oh, he would just say that to anyone. I'm like, it felt a little more pointed. Like, I don't know. It's like,
oh man.
Yeah. So, and I mean, I there was definitely like high school into college, like there was definitely like a party girl part of me, and the drinking definitely had like a hold of my life, I'd say for a good decade. And with that came experiences and like trauma and trouble, and, you know, like definitely leading to the dark night of the soul.
So can you take us through that just a little bit to the extent that you're comfortable? Like what was your overarching experience with alcohol? And then what would you say alcohol has done for you as a teacher? Like your experience with alcohol, how that shaped who you are right now, or what realizations you took away from maybe the dark night of the soul that brought you to? If you're willing to go there.
Alcohol, I mean, I would be more definitely like a binge drinker, and I could go out on a weekend and just have, and no one could tell if I was ever blacked out. That was the thing, is like, you wouldn't know at what point that happened. And so,
and then that's celebrated, right? People are like, oh yeah, you can hold your liquor really well. And you're like,
yeah. And I was really like, and I was kind of an egg-er-oner, so I could get the party going. And yeah, so it was, I never really thought I had an issue during it all, like while I was in it, because I was still like, quote unquote, doing everything. And looking back, I'm like, God, I did steal different parts of my life, because it's just, your body is not physically made to handle that. And, you know, when you think about college athletics and you think about just the college experience, like, and the way your brain and body work, it's much better with limited quantities of alcohol to function. And so that's a part of my life I feel like and alcohol like took from me in certain ways, and provided such contrast to what it's like to be on the other side of that. And, you know, would just be nights past a certain time that, you know, I don't know, there's like question marks around the rest of the night, because there was excessive amounts of alcohol consumed. Like college, I also was really depressed at certain points, and really bulimic. And, you know, at one point they thought I was going to go to like in treatment and like leave college swimming. And instead I had like a treatment team, and I had to see the doctor and the therapist and the psychiatrist and the nutritionist weekly to be able to keep swimming. And that was the first of like several girls on our team actually having to be in some kind of like protocol like that. And I think it established that protocol at Rutgers. And I can only imagine, like, from a mental health advocacy, that it's only gotten like way better from then. But yeah, it was.
So were those two things, I mean, they all, you know, your binge drinking and then bulimia, obviously they're intertwined at the level of like, those usually spring from a place of pain. Like you're in one way or another, either trying to self-medicate or trying to become good enough, or trying to just like become comfortable in your own skin, even if it's just for like the few hours of during when you are, you know, intoxicated. Would you say for you that with either alcohol or with bulimia, was there like an obvious like turning point? Was there a rock bottom? Was there a time that like that changed? Or for you, because it was kind of nipped in the bud early and you had support and like a treatment plan, do you feel like you were able to navigate it just kind of step by step without it ever being like this big catastrophe that you then had to
Yeah, it never got to be a catastrophe, but I think like the college experience was definitely Band-Aids. And, you know, I was on Lexapro and then Prozac, and then drinking heavy on the Prozac. And that meant like blacking out would happen after 2 or 3 drinks. Like it wouldn't take much. So I can only imagine what I was really doing to my body on the inside. And I think that pattern, even after college, continued for a while. And, you know, in one of my relationships, like it was very prevalent. And, you know, when I started working, it was like, as soon as it was Friday, I would start drinking like socially. It was never like alone, but it was social. And that was like the environment. And then, you know, Saturday would maybe be hungover, drink again, Sunday hungover. Now it's Monday back to work. And like, that was a good part of my early 20s. And definitely some weight gain. The last time when I moved from New York to Florida, that was the last time that I had binged. And that was 26, almost 27 years, 6 or 7 years ago.
And that was when I was 5 years old.
What? Yeah. And so that it became then gradual, and just starting to understand, like, that's when really my well-being, like, and wellness journey started happening, and alcohol was one of the parts where I thought like I had gotten a hold of diet and I had understood fitness, and I'm like, okay, I haven't been willing to look at how alcohol is affecting my life. And you know, I there were times that I, like, Lord willing, like I had definitely drove drunk, and like there was one time that I had something like wrong with my car that I'm pretty certain was like in some altered state, and that became like a scary point. And you know, thank God no one was hurt or anything worse, but there was definitely like wake up calls, and it's like that whisper talk yell, like I was getting to more of like the talking and the yelling. And there was a year that I didn't drink, and that was such a cleansing year and really awkward, and like learning myself so much. And that's where I think the turning point of who's Linda, like without this easy crutch of alcohol, and being able to learn about myself. And it's interesting because of like the recovery systems and treatment, I have not been through anything like that. And in South Florida, there's a community obviously of that. And my journey has been so much definitely like spiritual and about connecting to myself, and really feels like so beautiful. And I would never even say like a journey of recovery. Like I was never broken. Like I've been able to find my own space and way to have processed, you know, everything that I've processed up to this point in a way that's been really beautiful and to me. And I would encourage anybody in their own struggles to, you know, there's a lot of resources and help, and I just started doing like the internal checks of like, does this work for me? And that's been just such a gift.
I love that. I follow a lot of people that are in the sobriety movement, even though I personally am not sober. Though I would say I'm like sober curious. And one of the things that I've observed is that there's a trend now, not to say like AA is a wonderful program. It's helped, you know, millions and millions and millions of people, but it is kind of wrapped up with and intertwined with pillars of spirituality that maybe for some do feel really like steeped in those patriarchal overtones. So there's this kind of trend now towards a new kind of sobriety movement, which is really just rooted in agency. It's like, it's exactly what you said. Like, it doesn't have to be broken. Like, I'm not broken, but I want to be living at like my optimal levels, and I want to be able to fully experience this life that I've been given. And so, we don't have to be at rock bottom before we can choose to make a change.
You can make it right now.
Yeah, like from that experience, is that kind of the advice that you might give to someone who's struggling with just their drinking and feeling like it's not making them feel good in life?
Yeah, and there was that, like, because I never had considered that I had an issue. Like, I never really did. And there was a time, I'll never forget this. I was driving to meet some girlfriends in Miami, and I happened to call a friend I hadn't spoken to in years. And we were on the phone, and she had been sober several years. And there was a little of like the projecting of like what she had gone through. But she said, you know, it sounds like you have a drinking problem. And she's like, there could just be alcohol abuse. And I felt like there was so much shame in like alcoholism, and like I had always known that alcoholism had run in my family on my mom's side, and to an extent in different parts of my dad's side. And I was like, oh my God, like alcoholism, like what? Like just felt so ashamed of that. And then as soon as like the word alcohol abuse, I was like, well, hell yeah, I abuse alcohol. Like it was so obvious. And that was like the aha moment of like, this needs to change. And it just felt like this softening around like alcoholism, alcohol abuse. It didn't, like, I didn't need to conform to like a label of that. It just was like, this isn't working and there needs to be a better solution. And that's what I found over time. And I've had therapists be like, you're a miracle. Like you should be an alcoholic. And I'm like, no, like number one, why are you telling me I should be an alcoholic? Like it just felt so, it was like, well, based on your genetics and da 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 da. And I'm like, well, like that could be a story I could tell myself, or, you know, I could empower myself to have this experience. And I really do believe that's possible for anyone if they connect to the deepest parts of themselves.
So today, instead of binge drinking, like what are your go-to self-care practices that you choose instead?
So my like go-tos would be a walk, a hop in the ocean, a bath, meditation, a good workout, which it's become clear that that needs to become more of a regular staple in my life right now. And like cooking a great meal, like trying a new recipe that feels just so nourishing. A good cuddle, like playing with the dog. I also, if you're going to spend some money, I've been floating for a few years on a semi-regular basis. So I love floating, and that's in those Epsom salt baths. And like,
just be prepared for the first time to be really weird, you guys. Go float. You gotta lose your floating virginity. It's a little weird. I hear then it gets good. Just like sex.
The massage, like I can never pass up a good massage, and acupuncturists helped me a lot in just balancing, even like hormonally over the years. So those are some of my other self-care yeses. And I'm an essential oil like crystal junkie, so that's fun.
Yeah, girl. Clarifying question on your massage preferences. Are you a touch my feet kind of girl or a don't touch my feet kind of girl?
I'm a touch everything kind of girl.
Yeah.
Touch my feet, touch my belly, touch my hair.
Just touch me.
Please, make it all feel better.
So, all right. So I got to lighten, not that it's been heavy, but lighten it up a little bit. Do you know the game Kill F, Marry?
Yes.
Can we play Kill F, Marry real quick?
Sure.
Just one round. Just one round. Okay. Kill F, Marry. And for those who are not familiar, we're going to give you 3 options of people. You have to kill one, have intimate relations with one, and marry one. And you have to choose. Okay. So kill F, marry.
Could it be like hurt one, like make out one?
No, you must move. Yeah, sure. All right. Cause mild harm to, chase, peck on the lips, and maybe date for a short period of time, but don't commit. All right, no. Kill F, marry. Bill Maher, Channing Tatum, Barack Obama. Go.
Well, Mary Channing, I would.
Oh yeah, you just painted yourself into a corner, didn't you?
Oh gosh.
Well, first of all, please don't say that you'd kill the ex-president, because I'm pretty sure you're gonna have like some knocks on your door pretty shortly.
If you F? How many times do you get to F them?
Well, I've never been asked that question before. I think I didn't know if it was like a privilege thing, or I think it's just once.
Is it like one day you're gonna kill, F, and marry? Like it's just for one day?
I mean, I'm pretty sure the marriage is usually thought of as a lifelong sort of thing.
I know.
Killing is usually pretty permanent as well. So I think the F one is the only one that's temporary.
Okay.
Kill F, marry. You got to answer.
Okay, I would.
It's tough.
Pending heavy Fs in the marriage, Channing Tatum.
Mm-hmm.
F. Obama. I don't know much about Bill Maher and his personality. I guess I'd kill him.
All right. Honest answer. Thank you for that. Take us back to the late 90s, early 2000s. What is jamming on Linda's radio?
Speaking of jams, I like jock jams. You know, the
pump up the jam. Pump it up. Beat it fun.
The late 90s, early 2000s are, I think, some of the best like times ever for us. Like it was TRL on MTV. It was Real World. I would like Trishelle was like a big influence in my life. I thought she was so cool. Real World Vegas. That's like the stream of party girls. I was just living out my spirit animal, Trishelle. So I loved like a sneak, like we weren't allowed to really watch music videos. So I would like sneak BET and like MTV. But I like loved Jay-Z. Give me that funk, that squishy, that cushy stuff, that one song. Mm-hmm. I loved Juvenile, Back That Ass Up. I would get in trouble like in middle school dances because they were like, leave room for Jesus. And I was like really like getting it. And, yeah, like that Christina Aguilera song, I can picture her right now with like the long, crazy curly hair and like the all white outfit. And she's like, 'cause all I want is you, come over here, baby. So I was like definitely into pop, but I liked like a little like dirty rap music, like booty rap. And like when those mixes are on, it's the best day. And like my little rapper name is Little Linda. I wanted to be on a rap music video before I turned 30 with the dream still alive, and I know the outfit. I'd be like so fun being in the background, like wearing heels and a bikini on a boat or something. And those
that the outfit?
Yeah, with like a gold bikini and gold shoes.
I was gonna say, are we talking like sequins or glitter?
Like
or
gold, like really like gold, metallic.
Just really gold, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I would probably be like real tan, and you know, if there's like a goal date of that, say in 6 months, like let's get the squats bumping.
Mm-hmm.
But I just loved that.
Maybe with or without matching grill.
My parents, my mom bought us
no cultural appropriation in that. It's truly just appreciation. Like it would match the swimsuit. That's all.
My parents bought me a DMX CD, my mom, from Kmart. I'll never forget this. And it had
Shut the front door, Linda Tate, DMX.
It had a cross on it, and it was before like parental ratings were like buttoned up properly, and she bought it and was like mortified. And I was never like a huge DMX girl. And like a secret, like I used to watch SmackDown on Thursday nights. I had a friend in middle school, and he and I would have like a phone date every Thursday night and watch SmackDown. Like, I don't know, that's maybe where like the swimsuit dream, because those girls like wearing the outfits, and I don't know, it's like a funny time being in the late 90s, early 2000s with media.
Dear listeners, we'd like to ask you to hold that collective vision for Linda of the gold swimsuit. We're all going to just call that into being, and we'll expect our phones to start ringing with offers anytime now. So.
Also, that song Little Dicky, Save Dat Money, now with some of the work I'm doing with Wealth Expanded, like if I'm a rapper, I'm the girl version of Little Dicky, and that song makes me laugh so hard. I'm going to listen to it after this and watch the video and just laugh.
We'll see if we can pop a clip in. I don't know if it'll flag our copyright, but it's a sweet jam. Go have a listen. Save Dat Money.
His lyrics, it just inspires you to make conscious purchases every day.
Well, I think that's a great, perfect segue to like take us into some of your top 3 life lessons. Like if you had to distill all of your life experience to this point into just a few salient pieces of sage advice, what would those be? What are your biggest life lessons?
I think that some of the like platforms that I would say are the most important to me. One is I am like a fierce like female advocate, like woman advocate. I actually filed a Title IX suit against Rutgers when I was in college, and it settled in 2015. And they called me, the U.S. Department of Education, to tell me that the institution would forever be changed because of that. And
yeah, girl.
Yeah, and one of my fellow Rutgers friends like also filed that, and you know, it was really representative of like some of the systems are in place to, you know, propel change, and it worked. And that taught me, and forever has taught me, that like if something's not right, like whatever right means, but if something can be made better, like go for it. And just at that point I was like, I could get kicked out of school for this. Like I was really afraid that, and you know, you're protected legally, but I just thought like, you know, there is a risk to doing this, and there's a risk to doing a lot of things, and there's a risk to not doing things. And so to be able to have discernment, but to be like fearless in making that decision and change. And that was really powerful. Also, just through my career in finance, just understanding like our systems and how we have impact with our money. Like I really believe that as women and millennials come into 75% of the wealth over the next decade, the world looks different. Like I really believe that 100%. And I feel excited about that. And I feel really passionate about just waking up, getting curious, like working through some of your issues, and around money specifically, and to own it, and to women, like I find this sometimes with myself. I'm like afraid of my most blossomed, amazing, epic self. I get scared of her. And, you know, that's like the constant work of allowing myself to continue to step in, to grow, to thrive, to shine. And if you know me, you would maybe be like, really? Like you do that? But it's real. Like I feel like 1/10 of me is out there, and it's just being comfortably uncomfortable, showing up in my fullest every day. And
what do you think we're afraid of with that? Like, what are we really, are we afraid that we're going to like blossom into that fullest expression of ourselves and then not be able to maintain? So it just feels scary to like go there.
Yeah, maybe the maintenance. I think too, like, what could that mean for change? Like, this was something that came up for me yesterday. Like, I'm afraid of my life as it stands, which feels like really great, that would have tremendous change, which I know in the way that this works would only be positive. Like, you know, when you step back and look at it, maybe the process of it could be painful, but it would be all positive. And for like the greatest expression, you know, also being uncomfortable. And that's a part of it. It's just like the fear of what that could mean. So yeah, I don't know how to sum up.
I personally am really looking forward to you becoming the female Richard Branson.
Hello.
I'm holding the vision of a multi-passionate, multi-billionaire for my dear friend. I'm coming over, by the way. I'm looking forward to swimming in your giant bathtub.
There was a moment, Amelia, that you looked at me and it was like God, like sure as anything, looking at me, and you just said, you were like, your life is really big, and it was not you, it was like beyond you. And I remember the moment and just feel so blessed for that to like shine through you many times, and you do that for many women. And thank you. And the last lesson I would want to share, like, recovery and rest has been something I really had to learn. I feel like I was programmed, like you had mentioned, like type A, go, go, go. And, you know, for me, if I wasn't in pain, I was not working hard enough. I wasn't good enough. And it was like a direct correlation to like suffering being good. I mean, in some ways, like it was like definitely work ethic. And I saw that with my dad and just his commitment and dedication, almost 40 years in the same career and just like getting it. But there just being this like struggle and pain that I felt like if you didn't feel that, then you're kind of like almost worthless. And the way that I would say grace and rest come into, and this is a constant work for me, and leaving my full-time career and really stepping full-time into this life, like being able to be like, it's okay, like you did enough today, or it's okay to have nothing planned. Like it's a new like self-talk awareness that I had never really seen because I was so in the systems. And the time at the ashram for the yoga training, like understanding to be gentle and let my body fully recover physically. I got to experience stress offloading in that in a way I didn't even understand was possible. And I really encourage and empower people to find ways to offload their stress daily, truly daily. And like the parasympathetic stress that you can put on yourself through all different mediums, from emotional to physical to everything in between, technology, environment, they take their toll. And so that's also like a constant work and a constant accountability, and meditation has helped tremendously, as well as some of the other self-care modalities mentioned.
That makes me super excited to dive into that topic of the parasympathetic nervous system and the vagus nerve in a future show, because I know we're going to get so much good stuff for our listeners in that. So we would be remiss if we did not have our Rise to Thrive weekly book club selections. And we're going to give permission and encouragement for more than one book selection this week, since we're talking about like lifetime faves. So can you share with us, like, what do we need to be reading? What are the books that have shaped who Linda Tate is today?
Yeah, some of the like mind-opening books. I read Celestine Prophecy as a gift from my mom. That was actually my grandpa's book. And I have like a special spiritual connection to my grandpa, and to have that book come into my life was really cool and powerful. and definitely due for a reread for myself. It's probably been a decade since I picked that up. But
do you remember what was like maybe the most kind of influential thing in that book, or a piece that touched you?
It was like a sense of just opening, like a sense of beyond. There was like, for me, an experience of rigidity within my faith that like that book just opened me. And no, there's not like a chapter part of it. It was just the overall. And that's like one of the first experiences I had of like kind of a symbol or like something coming to me like through someone like my grandpa, like just feeling so cared for. And I've had different experiences with him throughout my life and continue to, that are really powerful. A New Earth, same thing. Like I read that book when it was so beyond my head, but I think what happens is seeds are planted that we don't maybe even fully grasp at the time. And, you know, another book that I'm really excited to give a revisit to, but one that definitely a cracking open.
So this is Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield, right?
Yeah, A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle.
A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle.
I mentioned quantum success a few weeks ago, and I picked this up within the past few months, and I really enjoyed it. Like Christy Whitman has a delivery of the content in that book that's really clear and kind of like instantly practical. And, you know, I think it could meet you where you are in whatever way of thinking, and it holds your thoughts accountable to your creation. And that's what I like about that book. The book Yoga, Wisdom at Work by Maren Shokir. Yoga, Wisdom at Work. This book, I read, I think, shortly after my yoga teacher training. It was like the click of, oh, yoga has nothing to do with the asana practice, although it does have to do with asana, but it was like to see how much beyond asana and the physical movement, and to truly like implement principles of yoga in all things. And it was a really powerful, easy read that I really enjoyed. And my last book club book by Rachel Campbell is Light is the New Black. And I picked this book on a family up on a family trip, this little like spiritual book store, I want to say in Copenhagen. I still have the bag. And I read this book on the night of like some familial tumult, and it was this just powerful shift for me in my way of thinking. This was an introduction at the time to some shadow work, and just being, at that same trip, I bought this little tile that says, be kind to your shadow, and just really being able to love up and receive the lessons from any type of shadow work. And it's a simple read, but really like is a proponent of you stepping into your greatness and your light, and came at the exact right time, like so much does.
And that was Light is the New Black by Rebecca Campbell.
Correct.
Yes. Okay, cool. And we'll drop that book list in the show notes for you guys. So if you're looking to go do your little Amazon binge, we'll hook you guys up with some stuff to spend your money on. And
self-care you asked about. I do love Recess. It's a sparkling hemp beverage, sparkling
hashtag
water.
Not sponsored.
Not sponsored.
Hashtag take a recess.
And
hashtag rise to thrive. So wait, what is Recess? It's a beverage. Is it like an energy drink?
It has adaptogens, which can help reduce your stress response, as well as hemp oil, and it's sparkling water, and it's yummy flavors like blackberry chai or peach ginger, and they're just refreshing. I've noticed, like, if I have one of those instead of an afternoon coffee, just like a really great feeling, and like a calming feeling, a expansive feeling, like a really grounded feeling, an alchemical feeling. They're really great. I love them. And I
feel like you're giving me a hint about my afternoon coffee. It's like crickets on the other end of the mic here. I'm like, trying to take away my coffee. Okay, yeah, take a recess, friends.
Take a recess.
I gotta check that out still. I gotta try that. I haven't tried it yet. Linda, this has been absolutely illuminating, and it is always just a freaking joy, man. Your joy is contagious. It comes through the ethers in this interwebs environment, and I hope that our listeners can feel it as well. I always feel so poured into and lifted up just by spending time with you. And I want to reaffirm to you that, like, your life is a big life, my friend.
Thanks.
And to my listeners, your life may be a very big life too. So take the encouragement from hearing about Linda's story, that whether we have a big life is really about the internal work, right? It's like whether we make the decision to, like whether we give ourselves permission and grace.
It's like surfing. Who's doing the best? Whoever's having the most fun.
Yeah, the best surfer is the one having the most fun. So that takes us into, those are some great words to live by. But if you had to give us some closing parting words to live by, or life mantra, or maybe just like what you would say to someone having a bad day, like stock us those nuggets of wisdom, the Linda nuggets.
The 3, they're simple, but breathe. And like, that's something I hold with me every day. And when I feel that stress bubble or kind of an emotional spiral, like I remind myself to breathe. Something that changed my life of just compassion is being able to know and have empathy that everybody truly is doing their best. And although that may not be, if I were them, what I think is the best, I really truly in my heart of hearts believe that. And it invokes like such compassion and understanding, and it feels so beautiful to be in that space. And what would be my last one? I don't know, those feel good.
So breathe. I heard breathe, and then I heard everyone is doing their best, including you, right?
One thing I like, this would be my 3rd, is like, what's the worst? Like, I will ask people this, like in the middle of a worry spout, like what's the worst case scenario? And like getting into that. And mine is like, I save my last $300, I fly to the Bahamas and I'm a bartender. And actually I would probably be a chef, not a bartender. But the old time was bartender. And I'm like, oh, that's an effing awesome plan. Like I love that plan. And then I'm like, okay, like I have, like, it's all good. Like, I just remember that. And like the worst case scenario is like, I'm chefing in the Bahamas. Like, come on, like I could do. And that way of thinking has led me to do some of my bolder steps, like going for the job I wasn't ready for, like literally everything, like getting a house, like doing the Title IX thing, like going for the swimming in college. Like, what's the worst case scenario? And it's like, oh, okay, let's do it.
I love that. Okay, let's do it. Those are good words to live by too. Yeah. Well, Linda, thank you so much for pouring into us this morning. This was just so much fun. Afternoon, evening, whenever you guys are listening. I just freaking love you, man.
I love you too.
So much joy to my heart. So
space.
If you guys have questions for Linda, if you want her to go deeper on any of these topics, please send us a DM on Instagram at Rise to Thrive Podcast. We'd love to hear from you, or connect with Linda directly on Instagram at lilalife.co. We want to hear from you guys. We love hearing your comments. If you like the show, please subscribe. Leave us a review. Let us know what you're loving, what you want to hear more of, and we will give it to ya. And we'll be back, you guys, next week with Hi Amelia.
Hey Amelia, what's up, girl?
So hopefully you guys will pop back in and give us a listen. We love you. We'll be dropping more gems weekly so you can thrive daily. So keep on thriving, thrivers. Keep on shining, shiners. We love you guys. Take it easy.